Welcome to the Inject Creativity Live Chat Show. This 30-minute webinar is live on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. And your comments and questions via these platforms are most welcome. Please keep them kind and respectful. Following this event, you are welcome to join us via the Blue Jeans online conferencing app for a 1-hour NESA-accredited workshop with our guest presenter. Now, here's your host, Dr. Tim Kitchen.
Thank you very much, Rob, and welcome to the Inject Creativity live chat show being recorded via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube on Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 2020. I'm your host, Tim Kitchen, Adobe's Senior Education Specialist for the Asia Pacific region. And helping me moderate this session is my colleague, Jerry Wong, Customer Success Manager. Let's bring Jerry up. How are you, Jerry?
Good evening, everyone. I'm well, thank you. And I will be moderating the chat tonight, so please ask questions, make comments, and let's just make this chat as interactive as possible.
We'll be crossing to Blue Jeans in very, very soon, in about 30 minutes time, or about 25 minutes time really, at bluejeans.com. And Jerry, I'll get you to put the banner up for the Blue Jeans link just to remind people, bluejeans.com/kitchen.adobe at the top of the hour for our Inject Creativity Deeper Dive event, where our guests will be presenting. The aim of this chat show is to connect you with our guests and get to know them a bit better. Now it's time to meet our guests. So I'm just going to bring up Bronwyn first. Let's introduce Bronwyn. I'll give a brief introduction before we say hello to her properly. So Bronwyn is the director of STEAM Ahead Australia, a startup social enterprise company specializing in teacher education and student experience. Oh, we need to mute something there. Maybe Jerry, if you can just check on that. We just got that extra. Yeah, there we go. That's better. No. I just got an issue with the audio there, Bronwyn. We might need to mute you.
I've got it.
You got it? Thank you very much. So she specializes in teacher education and student experience in intercultural communities of practices. She's an Adobe campus leader, a lecturer at Macquarie University, and an art teacher at Maria Regina Catholic Primary School. Hello, Bronwyn.
Oh, I think she needs to unmute.
So you're on mute at the moment, Bronwyn. I'll get you to unmute yourself on StreamYard. We're getting a bit confused between our two systems here. There we go.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
There we go. Gotcha.
Nice.
After that introduction, how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. Looking forward to tonight. It sounds like it's going to be very exciting, and looking to talk to people on chat and seeing what else is on tonight.
And just a quick question for you, Bronwyn. Tell us what you will be presenting during the Deeper Dive event later on.
Well, I felt that I'd like to present what I've just been working on, which is our Archibald Prize competition, which is a portrait prize competition offered in Australia, particularly Sydney. And it happens every year at this time. And it's been going for 100 years next year. So I've been working on that with my students and looking at their creativity, and particularly about the creative processes that they use. So I thought that might be useful for other teachers to look at. Looking
forward to it. So the folks, that'll be on Blue Jeans after 7 o'clock, or at the top of the hour. We'll be jumping into the Blue Jeans system to be hearing from Bronwyn. Let's meet our next guest, our other guest for tonight, and that's Rochon. Rochon is an international speaker, educator, designer, author, and architect from Queensland, and he has his own consultancy organisation for educators called Inspired Education Australia. How are you, Rochon?
Yeah, not too bad, man. My pleasure. Pleasure to be here. It's going to be pretty fun, I think, this kind of platform, your initiative.
Terrific. Thanks, Rochon. And tell us what you will be presenting during the Deeper Dive event later.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction on what we do with teacher training here, and mainly focusing on how design thinking and the Adobe platforms come together, essentially enabling teachers to inject more creativity. Hallelujah, that's the name of the event, I guess, but into the education system. So we'll go into a little bit more detail. And at the end of it, I felt like giving a bit of a shout out to yourself, Tim. You'll see a bit of a surprise for you at the end as well.
Oh, looking forward to it. Well, I've already had a little look at the video that you sent me earlier to load into the system. It was very impressive, the work that you're doing there in Queensland, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot out of it. So thank you for joining us. Now, the way we're going to work this is I've got some key questions for these presenters, and I'm going to be basing a discussion around those key questions. But those of you who are out live watching this at the moment, feel free to go into the chat and throw in some questions, some comments, some thoughts. And our moderator with the most, that's Jerry Wong up there, he's going to be moderating and checking, and we'll be throwing in those questions too. So feel free to contribute to the discussion. First question for Bronwyn. So tell us, Bronwyn, tell us about what you do in the world of education. It's a big part of your life. Tell us a bit about how you got involved in education and what you currently do.
Okay, well, I studied in Singapore at Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts, and while I was there, my parents said I couldn't go to art school in Australia because it was a little bit rough. But in Singapore, it was wonderful, and I did that for 3 years. And so that got me really interested in art because we went 7 days a week, every day, till about 1 o'clock, because then it got a bit hot. But we would work on works like charcoal works for about three weeks. And anyway, that really stimulated me. But we also exhibited from a very early age. So always exhibiting in Malaysia and Singapore. And so I started teaching at the international school. And I'm still teaching now. This is many years ago. So I love teaching of all different age groups. It could be in university teaching, or it could be early childhood, primary or secondary. I'm secondary trained as well.
So you're teaching at Macquarie University, where you're teaching teachers, but you're also teaching at a primary school, a Catholic primary school. Tell us about what you do in both of those roles.
At the university, I'm on the teacher education program. So I did my research at Macquarie University, my doctoral research on how to foster creativity in teacher education. And the reason I did that is that I went and worked with some early childhood children, and they were very creative. I thought, I can't teach you anything. But when I actually went back into looking at the teachers and what they were doing, I thought they weren't actually initiating a lot of creativity in the children. And I thought this could be an area that we could actually improve on, a gap that we could work with. And so I went back and did that. At Maria Regina, I've been there now for my second year. It's a wonderful little school. It's like a lab school for me. And so I'm teaching kindergarten to year 6, where we're actually looking at different forms of creativity in the classroom. So these are different levels of creativity, which I'll talk a little bit more about in my presentation.
That's terrific. Thank you. So let's go to Rochon now. And Rochon, tell us about what you do in the world of education and how you got involved.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. My background was in architecture, but then I got into education right after my master's and just teaching architecture and design principles at one of the universities here at Queensland. However, that got me into forming an Inspired Education, which is a private consultancy, and mainly because we saw a huge gap within the education sector and the lack of skills in the secondary system, and how the transition of our students from secondary to tertiary was hindering their process. So what we decided to do was inject different types of topics like design thinking, the Adobe suite, a whole bunch of other things, which I will go into a little later on, and teach teachers on the base 21st century skill sets that they need to prepare their students. So it's been quite an, I think, enjoyable process, given that I'd rather do that than sit in front of a computer doing conventional architectural practice, CADing 24/7. So absolutely the right move. And education, I think, for me, is about transferring knowledge. So at the end of the day, whether you're transferring knowledge onto students or educators, you're making someone else's life better. So I think that's where a lot of the fun for me happens.
And of course, Rochon, you've come in from an architecture background. So you're coming in from industry into education. How important do you think it is to have those links between industry and education?
Oh, I think it's one of the missing ingredients of 21st century education, because we're preparing our kids to go enter the industry with doing different things. So if they don't have that understanding of what the current industry looks like, it's going to be very difficult for them to actually understand and be prepared for it. So 100% very important.
Thanks, Rochon. Bronwyn, just a question for you. Why is being an educator so important to you?
I'm an artist, actually. My starting as an artist, my mother was an artist, my grandfather. But I think that knowing art myself is such a joy, such an opening of many different aspects of life, that I want to pass that knowledge on. And it's actually not a difficult thing to do. There's these little windows that can be opened through little tricks of the trade. And I think it's really important to pass those on in the way that others have passed them on to me, from all different cultures, very much from the Eastern cultures and the Western cultures. And I think as I've got all that knowledge, why would I hold it?
Absolutely. In fact, Bronwyn, I'm reflecting back on some interviews I did with you at the summit, at the Adobe Education Summit last year. I'm just going to share my screen for the moment so others can see what I'm talking about. I'll make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. And hopefully, oops, let me just jump into there. Hopefully you can see a slide now that says Dr. Bronwyn Wade, Lee Ewan, ACL. And what you can see most importantly on this screen is a link to vimeo.com/createedutv. And there's some screen grabs there of an interview I did with her face-to-face with all the AELs and ACLs that were part of the summit last year. And we've broken that interview into 4 different chapters. It's well worth having a look at. And what I'm fascinated with is the way that Bronwyn talks about creativity, the way that she defines creativity, the way that she has actually asked for student teachers, but then also gone into what experts are saying about what is creativity to them. And all of that's captured into a book that she wrote, which was part of her research. I'll just stop sharing for a minute. And Jerry, if you are able to, I'll just share again. If you're able to, Jerry, you just bring up that link, vimeo.com/createedu into the chat so people can actually get access to it reasonably quickly through the chat. That'd be great. But Bronwyn, a question for you is tell us about the book. Tell us about the research that you did and how that has, in a sense, changed or firmed up your views on creativity and its importance in education.
Well, the book was very important because in a thesis document, it's a little bit boring, 250 pages of data. So putting it into a very small A5 size book, the idea was that the teachers could take that with them wherever they went. It was based on about 6 different experiences or case studies around the world, starting with our Indigenous people and working with them, with Indigenous artists at the Bamali Cooperative in Leichhardt, Sydney, and then working with some very famous artists there, Jeffrey Samuels being the main one, who came into the suburbs in Sydney and worked with artists and children, Aboriginal children, non-Aboriginal children, and taught them printmaking and all the different traditional arts, but through Aboriginal concepts. And I think as it's Reconciliation Week, I think that was very exciting at that time. We had an exhibition as well. So that was great. But also the other interest being in Singapore was I speak a little Mandarin Chinese. And so we actually worked with the Chinese educators, artists as well. So the pre-service teachers at Macquarie University were exposed to these different groups, intercultural groups of artists and creative people working in partnership, also in collaboration with industry, to see what the art world was like. And I think it really blew them away And most of them, when I hear back from them now, are just saying how wonderful that experience was and how it's just infiltrated through their whole lives now and in what they do in their classrooms.
Bronwyn, when we get to the deeper dive show at the top of the hour, if you get a chance, I'll get you to get a copy of your book and show people what it is, if that's easy for you to do, or go to our website and bring it up and share it. But the name of the book is Out of the Shadows, and I had the pleasure of reading it just about 18 months ago now when Bronwyn first gave it to me, and it was a great read, and it's helped me with my presentations on creativity since then. I've been referring to it a number of times, as a number of people may have already experienced. So thank you, Bronwyn. Rochon, a question for you. Oh, thanks, Jerry. Look at that. Ticker tape, Out of the Shadows. Nice work. Rochon, tell us about the importance of creativity for you, coming from an architecture background, but now as also an educator.
Yeah, I think for me, creativity stems from actually the mindset itself, which is why for me, I give a lot of precedence to design thinking as a core skill set. And simply because design thinking, regardless of the industry you're in, you're able to then look at things through multiple different ways, come up with things that doesn't exist anymore, problem solve in a very creative way, innovate things, and it just opens a whole array of different options regardless of what you do. So, and we've seen evidence of that at a very young age. Students are able to do incredible work if we facilitate, I think, that level of allow them to almost run free and give them the right tools. And so this is why, for me, creativity is one of the most important things within the education sector, because if they choose to become an entrepreneur or if they choose to join up with an organization, either way, it's all upside. And when they have that when they have that mindset instilled, it's not something that they can easily lose. And we're arming them with some incredible skills. So that's why I think creativity is not just an artsy thing. It's absolutely the center of almost every single thing that we do, I would argue, I think, till the sun comes up on that topic.
Thanks, Rochon. And of course, the Australian curriculum now has creative and critical thinking as key capabilities. So when you're talking to teachers and you're trying to say, well, hang on a minute, is it in the curriculum to be creative? Well, it is now. And those key capabilities are meant to be incorporated into all curriculum areas. So it's nice to be able to have those discussions. Not every country has creativity as actually part of their curriculum. Last question for both of you. What are your favorite 2 Adobe applications, speaking of creativity? Let's go to Bronwyn first.
Well, I find the Spark programs are fantastic for everything that I'm really doing at the moment. So I use Spark Video, and you'll see that tonight. But also the Spark Post is like a blog page for me, and I actually use that quite a lot. And I've just tonight also, I'm using the collage, the Spark collage. So I've actually stuck mainly with that Spark suite, but also the Premiere Rush for other video, more action moving imagery. I use that one. So I'd say they're my 2 favorite. Thank you.
Lovely, as they are the favourite of many educators. Rochon, before we find out your 2 favourite, we do have a question from John. John, who's based in Toowoomba. Jerry, could you bring that question up for us? He says, probably a question best suited for a session later, but just wondering how Rochon takes the first steps towards inspiring teachers to adopt a more creative approach to design with their students. Great question, John. Rochon, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's quite a common question, actually. Believe it or not, I think the best way that we do things is almost showing the teachers. It's forcing them to think on their own rather than giving them step by step. So one of the biggest things that we kind of get a little bit of backlash from some of the teachers is who are strapped for time want just a step-by-step version. And what we do is we usually try to push past that to get them to think on their own, which is essentially the facilitation they need to put forward with their own student. At the same time, we do that by making it really fun. So I think even with the teachers, when they have fun doing it, having interactions within themselves, doing activities and tasks that they've never thought about within their environment, whatever the subject might be. It all of a sudden pushes those boundaries. And then at the end of those training sessions, we usually put in front of them a guide that tells them exactly what they've learned and how they can put it into the classroom tomorrow. So it's been working well so far.
And Rochon, what are your two favorite Adobe applications?
This is a bit of a weird one because I feel like I have to pick three because two is a bit difficult. I use Photoshop since I think 2007, and I'm not sure if I should be saying this in an Adobe event, but I actually use Photoshop for InDesign Illustrator purposes just because that's all we knew. And so I would say InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop are my favorites, but Photoshop's up there.
That's great. And just notice a comment here from Roland, who's in the Philippines. Jerry, do you want to bring up Roland's comment? Is teaching Adobe for real-world skills has enabled me to connect with educators. We've grown from 100 to 5,200 in just 3 weeks. Roland does amazing work in the Philippines. He's also a consultant. He works with educators in that region, and he's become a bit of an Adobe legend. So I'm glad that he's joined us live on Facebook, which is terrific. And it's always great to connect with Roland. And I'm hoping to connect with him face-to-face again in the near future. Missed out this year, unfortunately, Roland, due to this thing called COVID-19, but hopefully we'll connect again in the near future. Thank you for contributing. Well, how can we purchase the book? Well, Jerry, that's a good question there. Yeah, Bronwyn, do you want to just respond to that? I think I do have an answer for you, but Bronwyn, how would you respond to that?
Oh, well, the book is called Out of the Shadows: How to Foster Creativity in Teacher Education. So you can just go online and get it there. It's actually published by Common Ground. And so you can buy it there as well. It's very easy to find. So yes, you can just get different prices for it. They range somewhere between $10 to $50. So yeah, Australian dollars.
There you go. Let's maybe don't get the $50 version just yet, but yeah, it's a good read. It's not overly research reading. It actually is a good read. If you're not into reading research, it actually has a nice blend between the research and the narrative is quite easy to cope with. Bronwyn and Rochon, thank you so much for your time. We're really looking forward to your proper presentation, which will be happening in about 7 or 8 minutes time, or thereabouts at the top of the hour. But right now, I'm just going to say goodbye to all of you. And we've got a quick share of some housekeeping, just some announcements to make. So let me just share my screen. And hopefully you will see the right screen. I just want to talk about the Adobe Education Exchange to start with and just give you some information about what's been happening. The Education Exchange now has 832,928 members globally. We're getting very close to that million mark. In the Apec region, 123,110, and in ANZ, we've hit over 40,000, which is a great goal. So I think a round of applause is going to be required for everyone who has been driving the Adobe Education Exchange as a resource. Thank you very much to everyone who has been promoting it. Would also like to share a new course that's on the Education Exchange. And what I'm going to do here, folks, is just going to jump back to this screen. I know that's going to look a bit silly on the screen, but I've got a video to play for you that summarizes this particular course.
Understanding the fundamentals of good design is important for any educator who wants to communicate with impact. This free, self-paced course is aimed at all teachers and educators looking for an introduction to basic design principles. You'll learn from expert educators and designers and explore a collection of resources and examples that you can immediately start using in your own classroom. Enroll and learn more at edX.adobe.com.
Well, there you go. It's an exciting program. Let me just make sure I am sharing. Looks like I am. Just, Jerry, interrupt me if I'm not sharing. I think I'm sharing there. The name of the course is Basic Principles of Design. only just started, I think the dates are there somewhere, 6th of May. So it hasn't been on for that long. It's our most recent course, worth getting into. Notice it focuses on Photoshop, Illustrator, and Spark. And I encourage you to share this course with your colleagues. Jerry, just confirm to me that we are sharing, that people are seeing those slides. Oh, you can't because I haven't got you on. That's fine.
Yes, it's all
cool.
coming in on screen.
Thanks, mate. Cool. Now, the Adobe Creative Educators program. We're less than a month away from commencing this new program for any educator in any sector and in any subject area who's interested in enhancing digital literacy opportunities and creativity into their classrooms. You don't need to be an Adobe expert to be in this program. We're looking for teachers who are passionate about digital literacy and creativity in education. Sign up to the waiting list now if you haven't already. We've got about close to 3,000 teachers who are already signed up, and then it launches in July, and that's when you'll be introduced to the course. Those of you who are currently campus leaders, you'll automatically become creative educators, and then we close the campus leader program down at that point. I want to promote the summit and just let you know that it is happening between the 29th of September and the 1st of October. It's the 2020 Apec Adobe Education Summit, and it will be an online event. And it's open to all educators over the region during the September school holidays. The theme will be improving education following COVID-19. And the September 29 date, that's a Tuesday, will be exclusively for Adobe education leaders. So if you are currently an AEL and you haven't updated, then please do so that you remain updated. I think the closing period for that is pretty tight. So we want to get you, make sure you've got your current when you become an AEL so you can be part of that day. On the Wednesday, the 30th of September, it'll be a day for all teachers, all educators in all regions, and we'll be connecting live with AELs from America and our Adobe education team in America in the mornings, and then we'll be working with our local AELs in the afternoon. It's going to be a great day for any teacher at all. On the 1st of October, it's a special Creative Challenge Day, and this will be for Adobe education leaders and those who have joined the Adobe Creative Educators program. You can register for this event there at the bit.ly/adobe-edu-summit20. Make sure you register in advance to guarantee a spot. Thank you for joining us for this inaugural Inject Creativity live chat show, and a special thank you to our guests Bronwyn Wade-Leeuwen, Dr. Bronwyn Wade-Leeuwen, and Rochon. Now, Rochon, I'm not sure if I've pronounced your surname correctly, but I think it's Senaniak, but you can correct me if I'm wrong there when I bring you back up again. And I want to thank our moderator, Jerry Wong. It's time now to move to Blue Jeans, so I'm just going to stop sharing this, and Jerry's going to bring up the Blue Jeans link if you're not already aware of it, because we are just about 1 minute and 40 seconds away from going into our deeper dive show with our presenters. Thank you for joining us, all those who have joined us live. Let's make the move now, and I look forward to seeing you in Blue Jeans any minute now. All the best. Bye-bye.